welcome. I am Anthony, the CTO of AtWorks, and I am very happy to welcome you to Ethereum Meetup Poland. We meet almost every month to speak about blockchain stuff, and today is no different. So a quick question, who is here for the first time? Hands raised. Oh, good. It's always good to see new people. So just as a short introduction, we'll have two presentations. In the meantime, I think we will not do a break between because it doesn't make sense. After the second presentation, don't run away. There is beer and there will be pizza. There is also some water, I think, and maybe some juice if you search around. So please don't run away. A lot of Ethereum Meetup Poland is about actually meeting people and talking to them. So that's working. This said, I think we'll just jump to the first presentation. So please make some noise for Eyal, who came to us to explain the DAO of Bisq. So thank you very much. And
so thank you for coming. I mean, I know it's winter and it's a Friday evening, so it's not so obvious that people come. And I'm Eyal. I'm from Israel, but I live in Germany. I live in Berlin. I did PhD in mathematics in Berlin. And nowadays I do kind of independent research in the area of cryptography. And I also do consulting for blockchain startups about consensus algorithms and encryption stuff. And in my spare time, I invest a lot in open source projects in the internet. And one of these open source projects is Bisq. And in the Bisq, in the last year and something, was involved in development of something we call DAO. That's the title, the DAO of Bisq. I'm really curious, so it's a small crowd, but how many people here heard about Bisq? So, okay, there are 3 hands raised up, and one of them is a friend of mine. That's good. It means that I have what to tell you. Bisq is a P2P, peer-to-peer marketplace for Bitcoin. So it means that if you want to buy Bitcoin or if you want to sell Bitcoin, this is a place where you can find somebody who wants to do the opposite. And everybody knows, I mean, it doesn't sound so special because you can easily buy or sell Bitcoin in some online platform. You can do it in an exchange. It's quite easy, but Bisq is completely decentralized. So the whole deal begins once you download Bisq. I have to change the side. Once you download the Bisq software, then the only thing that nothing stands between, so there is no organization. When you want to buy something, you find directly the person who wants to sell, and when you do the deal, everything is directly with this person. So this makes it private. It makes it censorship resistance, and hopefully it also makes it secure. The other part of the talk is about DAO. So now is the question, who heard the term DAO? Which is much more people, yeah. Because DAO is a general blockchain concept. Especially DAO became like a very popular, I think, with a DAO, which was an Ethereum project. One of the most fascinating stories, in my opinion, in the blockchain history. The whole thing from the creation, the ICO, till the hard fork. DAO, for whoever doesn't know, DAO is initials for decentralized autonomous organizations. And we all know what organizations are, right? Because an organization basically is like a group of people who decide to work together towards some common goal. And normally when you want to do it today, when you want to make an organization, you have to either really trust the people, and if it's too many people, it's difficult to trust, you don't know all of them, or you make kind of a legal agreement and you tie yourself legally to some country, to some state, and it works. It works great. I mean, there are many such organizations like ETH works, that works fantastically. But sometimes for some projects in the internet, this is not an option because people come from all over the place. They come from all over the world, and there is no one jurisdiction that you can tie yourself to. So the DAO kind of replaces legal framework with cryptography and lets you create the same organization of people in the internet working together towards a common goal, but using cryptography. The first part of the talk is about Bisq. So I cannot speak about the DAO of Bisq before saying what Bisq is. I heard about Bisq for the first time about 1.5 years ago in this place. This is Hackerspace, or they call themselves Institute for Crypto Anarchism in Prague, in Czech Republic. And every year they have in October a Congress of Hackers. And it's a very interesting event. So the people there are quite extreme in their opinions, but they are also quite original in their opinions. And I come there actually to just hear stuff, and it's really interesting. And there was a talk about Bisq, how to begin a DAO. This was in a stage that Bisq was already a project, a small one, but the DAO was just an idea with some, they had design papers which were incomplete. And back then I was already very curious about the whole idea and concept of a DAO. So after the talk, I spoke with one of the contributors of Bisq, and I'm a nice person in general, but when I get to theoretical discussion, I can be very intensive. So I was super intensive with him without noticing. I think at some point he got tired of me, and he was like, hey, maybe you want to do that. So they sent me the documents, and there is a main guy who does that, Manfred Carrer. He is the co-founder of the project of Bisq, and we spoke a few times, and for a few months we went back and forth with the input of many other people, and eventually we came out, I think in January, February, with a version of the DAO design that we like, that we analyzed and we thought it was safe. And in general, afterwards, I spoke a bit less with Bisq. Sometimes we exchanged some stuff. And with the months, the thing is that when you start to do something with a project, you make friends with people, and with the time you find out that you speak more and more with them. And I think that in the last 3-4 months, I can say that I'm a developer of Bisq. So for whoever always wondered how do you join a open source projects, that's how you do it. You begin with something and just builds over time. Probably like 8-9 months, and I feel right now that I'm really like a core developer, especially when it comes to this. Okay, so that's what the software looks like. It's a marketplace. If you ever used any online platform to buy and sell stuff, there's nothing surprising here. There's like people who wants to buy and people who wants to sell. When the thing here is what happens behind, because while it looks normal from the screen, behind it's completely different. Because there is nobody that does automatic matching, so you cannot just put something and somebody will match you with some. You cannot just say I want to buy and somebody will match you automatically. You always have to be active when you buy and sell, and the whole process of transferring the money actually happens out of the software, because we are not an operator. We are making the software. Let's assume now that I want to buy Bitcoin. That's a picture of me, which was drawn when I was 20. Apparently, that's how I looked back then. And I go to the Bisq software, and the Bisq software, I find some internet stranger that wants to sell Bitcoin. That's how I imagine internet strangers look like. And you should do the same. Internet strangers are really dangerous. So I want to give him 500 zlotys, and in the time that I wrote the presentation, 500 zlotys were 0.035 Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure that right now it's much more. We find each other with the software, so we both shout to the P2P network, to the internet, that we want to do that. We find each other, and then the question is, how do we do that? So we go to the software. The software tells us basically what to do. There is a protocol. The software kind of walks us through the protocol. First thing, oh yeah, that's me with the tie, because when I do business, I put the tie. So the first thing that you do is you create a multi-sig account in Bitcoin. A multi-sig account means an account that now if you want to take money from, it would have to be an agreement of both me with the tie and the internet stranger. So one of us alone now cannot move anything. And in this multi-sig account, we put the money that he wants to sell me and deposits, security deposits from both of us. just to make sure that we don't run away and the money gets stuck there, so we have some motivation with a security deposit to go through till the end of the protocol. The next thing is the software tells me, okay, now you did that, now go to your bank, give them the 500 zlotys, and they would give it to the internet stranger who still doesn't smile for some reason. This is done. It usually takes a day or two. Banks are slow. And you can also do, I mean, I give here an example of zlotys. You can do the same thing with Ethereum or Monero, but always you would have to go to a different wallet and actually transfer the money. When you do that, you go back to the software, and now the software tells both of us what to click to release the money. So I get my Bitcoin plus deposit, and the internet stranger gets the deposit. The deposits are there to keep it safe, so that after I got the money, I will not, after the internet stranger got the money, he will not run away because he still wants his deposit. It's not an enough security measure to make it safe, which is why we have like 1 million security measures in the protocol. There is age of account, so you know that somebody didn't just now join and wants to do a trade. In the first month that you do a trade, I think that the most that you can buy or sell is 400 euros. I'm not sure about the number. Second month it's more, etc., etc. There is a decentralized arbitration system, which will be changed in the next few months to the decentralized mediation system. So there are really many security measures which are supposed to make it safe, and so far it works quite well. Bisq began to be developed in 2014, right after Mt. Gox got hacked. Maybe it's a coincidence, maybe not, I'm not sure. The development took 2 years, and in 2016 it launched. In the beginning, nobody used it. That's obvious. Then there was a jump last year in December because the price went up. In the last few months, it becomes more and more popular, where now the numbers are quite high. It especially becomes popular with the Monero community. So they exchange their Bitcoin and Monero. I think in general that if you are developers and you look for a project to work on, this is a great project. It may be also pay you in the future financially, but in general, it's a great project because we have a great community of smiley people. It's also a very good time to join because right now, with the usage go up, the amount of people who are active goes up. And right now, our forum is very lively and active, but not too active so that it will distract you from your life. So it's in a really good balance. It's also a time that we have this decentralized organization, DAO, and it was launched on Monday on a testnet. So now it's part of the software. So when you download the software, it's there, but to use it, you have to go to the testnet. And the DAO for me is super interesting. So if you want to do something like that, it's a good time to join. It's already there, but we look for developers. Bisq is written in Java. I'm sorry. But I know that there are many Java developers in Poland. And we look also for people, I don't know, economists, people who know organization theory from the academy, people who have experience with such things, because making a decentralized organization is also, you need to know something about organizations, not only about consensus protocols and programming. Which leads us to the second part of the talk, DAO. When it comes to a DAO, to a decentralized organization, there are 3 questions, I think, which are interesting in this stage, which is, why do you need a DAO? What do you do with a DAO? And how do you do it? The first one is like, why? And the story goes like this. That's usually how it goes with internet projects, which are good. You begin doing something at home. Okay, like you work on it for a few weeks, a few months. After a while, you have a demo. You show it to some of your friends, and they say, oh, cool, can we join? And suddenly you are 3 people. So if you are 3 people, you open a GitHub, you start to communicate with mail, it all works great. You release the first version, people use it, and suddenly you find yourself being 6 people. It becomes a bit more popular, and it's more people, and then more people, and then more people. And if you've ever been in this situation in an open source project, you know that the next thing is usually this. And this is normal. This is not because programmers are not good socially, which I heard some people say. It's not because people are picky. This is just normal for human society. So there is this book, which I love. It's an Israeli writer, Yuval Noah Harari, but I think it's also very popular in English. And yeah, somebody here says yes, so he read it. Yuval Noah Harari is like a poster child of the Israeli History Academy world. There was in Jerusalem University, there is a course, Introduction to the History of the World. It used to be taught by 12 people, 12 professors, each one of them experts to a different area, and he was teaching the whole course. So he just took all over the whole thing. And in a small part of his books, because he tells there a million things, is the thing of, how we grew up from a small tribe to society. And he says that what we can do and animals cannot do is talk. So by talking or writing, you can create a community, which is okay till about 100, 200 people. It works well. You meet in a place, you can meet in a chat room in the internet or in a place like this and make decisions. Everybody participate, everybody feel good at work. Good, it works. For more than this, for more than 100 and something, more than 200, you start to need to have institutions, some structure, because you cannot just meet and do stuff. Internet is not talking communication, it's writing communication. The numbers are probably different, but from my experience, the same logic goes there. After a while, you need to have some kind of structure on decision-making, on communication, especially if money gets involved. So Bisq got donations at some point, and then you have to distribute it, you have to decide what to do with it. We also have some transaction fees, which you also have what to do with it. And for this, you need some structure to make decisions, to organize stuff. You can make a traditional organization, which is great, but for this, again, you need to decide which state you go to. It's not really possible for Bisq. Everybody is really from all over the world, and some people, I don't know where they are from. And the thing is that traditional organizations work with banks, and we use cryptocurrencies, so we would have to open a bank account, and to actually create more complications than helping. Or you can use an online platform. GitHub have organization mode, which we use. It doesn't support cryptocurrencies, but you can make something like this with cryptocurrencies and more sophisticated rules to how to manage an organization. And I think it would work well, but my experience with online platforms is that they are good for a while. So everybody here uses online platforms. You cannot do anything alone in the internet nowadays. It goes well in the first month when you know what you get to. It goes well for a year, but every platform that I use for too long, something really annoying happened. They changed something, they blocked me, they decided that I cannot do what I used to do till now. My data got leaked. You don't have a choice as a person, and also you can change, but organization is something that in theory you would want to be existing to many years after you leave the project. An online platform, I think for the really long run, it's not great. And you can do alone. So I said, as a person, you cannot do alone, but if you are a community, you are not a person, you are many people, and then maybe you can do something alone. So the alone way, this is for me DAO, it's the alone way, is to use a peer-to-peer network. You don't use any service. You use cryptography to build the structure. It uses all kind of computer protocols and agreement. And that's to me why the Bisq needs it. And the other thing is because it's based on cryptography, it's a perfect match with the cryptographical currencies. So it's a good match for a project like Bisq. I think that there are other projects who would benefit from DAO. There are other DAOs in the world. The Cree is a DAO, and there is Aragon, which is a platform from DAO on Ethereum. I also see Bitcoin as kind of a DAO. And this is my answer to the question why. So I'm going to skip because we don't have time, so I'm going to say what we do with the DAO. And I should say that you can do with a DAO, with organization, you can do basically whatever you want. You can make up the rules, which is why I'm going to go quite quickly on it. This is the part where we definitely need people who know something about how to create organizations and which rules and which structure are supposed to be there. The first thing that we do with the DAO is to issue tokens. We issue tokens not for payment. We issue tokens because the way that it goes, it's supposed to be a meritocracy. So you can get tokens if you contributed something to the project. And if you contributed something to the project, if you have token, you can vote on the project's decision. Right now, we manage the tokens in testnet, so it's worth nothing. In the future, tokens will also be tradable, and the tokens will be used optionally to pay for transaction fees. I don't want to speak about it so much more because I saw in the last 2 years fantastic internet projects which issued a token, and the only thing that they started to speak about is the token, and the project became much less interesting. So I don't want to say more about the token. If you want to hear about it more, come to our Slack, and there is also to our website lots of documents. At the moment, let's leave it like this. It's going to be appointment of rules in Bisq, so people who manage the Twitter account, the social accounts, people who manage all kinds of stuff, people who are mediators are going to be with that. Protocol parameters, so I said now in the first month you can trade like 400 euros maximum, but that's something that you can change with voting. You can also change the protocol in general. Or adding assets, so I want to trade a Bitcoin with some new cryptocurrencies. This can be a request to add in the new version, because it's not an operator. Right now, the decisions what to have as pairs with Bitcoins are arbitrary. You want to make it like the community decides. And many more things which I am not going to mention now, because I want to speak about how you do that. There are other DAOs. So I said Bitcoin for me is a DAO, and the Cree is a DAO, both of them. Sorry, 1 second. So both the Cree and Bitcoins are both DAO and a blockchain. It's obvious what they do, and it works well because they are a DAO and a blockchain. So all the decisions are written in the blockchain. There is Aragon, which is a platform from DAO for DAOs, and as far as I saw, Aragon and other solutions, and maybe I'm wrong here, maybe they all write a lot of stuff on the blockchain that they use. And for me, it's not so scalable. So it is scalable if the organization is small. It is scalable if there are not many organizations, but like everything in blockchain, if it ever becomes successful, then you might be in trouble. Which is why Bisq tries to be a second layer organization. So second layer means that if you look at the Bitcoin blockchain, you see some little information about the Bisq blockchain, but it's not enough to know what the Bisq blockchain does. So the Bisq blockchain kind of uses the Bitcoin blockchain. And the way that it goes is that this is the Bitcoin blockchain, blocks. And in every few blocks, like you attach a Bisq block. So the green one is the second layer. How you attach the Bisq block, because we don't have an operator. I mean, this looks like kind of, I don't know, people here from Ethereum, if you heard about plasma chain or child chains, or where you can do proof of stake with this kind of thing that you write like a hash of a block on a blockchain block, because when you do that, basically the blockchain orders the other blocks. It works if you have an operator, if you have somebody that writes it. We don't have an operator, so what we do is the participants, kind of everybody who votes write the hash of the block, so they are like voting on the hash of the block in the Bitcoin blockchain. It means that there are many hashes in the Bitcoin blockchain. The other thing, okay, maybe I'll show how does a Bisq block looks like. A block is basically records. That's all. Here, every record is a decision of the organization. There is a list of possible decisions. And when you vote on a block, you both decide which record you want to approve, and you also validate that the records are correct. So as long as like the majority of the people that vote are honest, then you will have a correct block. It has three phases to create a block. First one is everybody can propose which decision to make. This is the proposal phase. So there is like I think 2-3 weeks period where what you do is you don't write your proposal on Bitcoin blockchain, of course. You write the hash of your proposal. So again, we have many hashes of proposals on the Bitcoin blockchain. When this is done, when this thing is over, you come to a blind voting phase. And the nice thing is that because you know the hashes of the proposal which you're supposed to vote on, you kind of know what you are voting on. You still need to have the text of the proposal. This is being broadcasted in the Bisq peer-to-peer network. However, if somebody put a hash and didn't broadcast the text of the proposal, he's just going to be downvoted. The blind voted is to avoid the less person voting thingy. For, again, I'm speaking here to people who did something with such things in the past. And the last phase is to reveal the votes. So your vote is encrypted, you reveal it. And in the same time, you also vote on the hash of the block. I know that the chances that you really followed and now know how does the Bisq works are slow, because to give a lecture on the technical implementation of the Bisq DAO is probably a lecture on its own, and it's probably going to take more than half an hour, which is why what you can do is go here. There is a short document that I wrote, quite concise, 5 pages, on how does the Bisq blockchain work. If you go to the Bisq website, there is a longer document that other people wrote with lots of technical details, how does the Bisq DAO works. If you are curious about DAOs and about consensus algorithm, about second layer solutions, I'm here after the talk, and I love to talk about such things. If you want to do something with it, you can either send me a message. It's quite easy to find me in Twitter, or you can just go to the Slack of Bisq and look for me. I usually go by the nickname Neyman. You can also call to me after the talk and exchange details. I think that's it. So thank you. This is our website, bisq.network. Again, you're welcome to use Bisq, but this is not my job to promote Bisq. What is important for me is that people will join the development, enjoy the research. So if you like this kind of stuff, please come and talk to me. Thank you.
Ask a question. You mentioned the bank and the deposit, which was not really clear to me, because you said that the bank is making the payment, but then I saw that the deposit also is moving to the seller. Can you clarify this?
Second. Yeah, there are 2 places here when transaction is being made. This multi-sig is not in a bank, that's in Bitcoin. So this is before the whole bank stuff. The stranger puts the amount of Bitcoin that I want to buy in a Bitcoin multi-sig account, and me and the stranger both put their deposits. This is now in a Bitcoin account. So it's locked there, it's waiting for both of us to release it together. Then I go to the bank and transfer, it's a bank transfer, 500 zlotys. Now the stranger has 500 zlotys, and the Bitcoin multi-sig account have 0.035 Bitcoin and deposits. So the next stage is that we release the money from the Bitcoin multi-sig account. The Bitcoin and my deposit goes to me, and the stranger gets back his deposit. Did this make it clear? Thank you.
So you mentioned that recently Bisq has seen a lot of increase in Monero users, and probably part of the reason is because Shapeshift has implemented KYC, and I think IDEX is doing the same soon. So can you tell us a little bit about if Bisq is worried about regulators, or will it ever implement KYC?
Sure, it's a great question. So I say we. Bisq is not an organization, so there is no we. I think that some members, including myself, spoke with some lawyers and some regulators that maybe I know personally about how it goes. Bisq is not an operator. So we create a software in the same way that the company that creates BitTorrent creates BitTorrent, and the company that creates Tor creates Tor. And once the software is downloaded, we don't have any control. So it's very important for us to not have any control. both for the safety of the users, but also from regulation side. The way that I see Bisq is that it's really equivalent to, having, in Israel we have every Sunday something which is called Satoshi Square. It's a square in Tel Aviv where, so it's called Satoshi Square, the event. The square is not called Satoshi Square, where people come and they, buy and sell Bitcoin over the counter. And this is what Bisq is, it just does it with the software. So, of course, we are all worried about regulations. I personally don't want to do anything illegal. We worked really hard for not being an operator, and as far as I understand, but I'm not a lawyer, to write a software is legal.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, yeah, there deserves some applause. So. Okay, so for the second talk, I would invite Marek on the stage. I am especially proud because this is one of our projects, our own. So without further delay, I will just give Marek the microphone.
Feel free to generate another 30 seconds of delay when I
Okay. So. By the way, this is the perfect moment to grab a second beer if you didn't get the first one. Okay, 5 more seconds for the beer.
Okay. Good.
Some noise.
No worries. I see it's a little bit more relaxed today, so that's nice. Nobody is stressing about crypto prices going up too fast. It's a weird thing, but I'm now more relaxed than I used to be when the prices would go up, and I'm like, oh my God, I have so much money, what do I do with that? And now I'm like, okay, nothing to worry, I can go back to work. Good. Are we ready? I think we're ready. So today I would like to talk a little bit about universal login, and I'm glad to see so many of you today who join us, even though we have a winter, even though we have a crypto winter, and just winter. So universal logins. What is the, I'll start with the second slide and I'll go back to that one. So what is the problem we're trying to solve? So the thing is about blockchains, and probably we feel it now more than like a month or 2 months ago, is they are really hard to use. And especially they're hard to use in general, and good security is hard. What do I mean by that? Well, imagine you're onboarding a newbie, a person that is not a tech-savvy person, and perhaps I always imagine my mother when I try to go through that experience in my mind. So we have to explain what the crypto is. We need to register a person on exchange. The person needs to go through KYC process, and we need to install wallet. And once they have a wallet, well, they really need to be conscious about where they store their keys, because if they lose their laptop or they lose their phone, then all the money is gone. And of course, they can back up seed phrase, which, by the way, is proven with usability research. Nobody does that, and companies like Status spend months and months in research trying to force people to back up seed phrases, but it's like something around 1-2% of people actually do that. But let's say we find a magical way to do that. People start backupping their seed phrases, and the question is, where do they store them? So maybe they store them in the somewhere in the house. Then it's easy to find, easy to steal. Maybe they're stored in the bank, but then it's you know, the opposite of what we are trying to build here, right? So we had this huge dream of having a blockchain change the world and decentralize and everything. But then reality is we're still struggling with those very basic things like how do we onboard people? How do we make them come to us and use blockchain? Yeah, hardware wallets, multi-sig wallets, yeah, that's something very abstract to people who just, you know, we want to onboard. And in my mind, most of the world still needs to be onboarded to crypto, still needs to be onboarded to blockchain because we're still a very small community. Good. So how would we like to solve it? So universal login is made of 3 components. We combine 3 ideas that, well, at least 2 of them already existed before. One is we want to create a personal multi-sig wallet for everyone. So the idea that we store all the funds on one key that we have on one device or even backup as a seed phrase seems a little bit scary to me personally and some other people. So instead we say the right place to store funds is the contract. And we have different ways to access that contract. That would be very difficult to use in practice if we would have multiple keys on multiple devices to access our own funds on the smart contracts, and on every single key we would need to have a little bit of Ether to be able to create a transaction. That would be the opposite of what we want, the opposite of usability. We would need to manage all the different funds just for sending transaction to the multi-sig wallet and manage the right wallet. So we use meta transactions, and meta transactions works in a way that we can use the keys on all the different devices and create transactions on personal multi-sig without need to have funds anywhere else than just on the multi-sig itself. Does that make sense, by the way? When I say multi-sig wallet, funds, keys, does that? Raise your hand if it's kind of obvious what I'm talking about. Okay. Half of the people, not so bad. Who has no fucking idea what I'm talking about? Okay, 1 person. Who is somewhere in the middle? Good, okay. So a couple of people, right? So, okay then. So let me jump to some other slides and see if that will be helpful. Okay. So here's the idea how it works. So we have identity, or let's call it just contract. This is the contract. That thing is living on a blockchain, right? And we have a bunch of different places where we store keys, right? So there is a laptop. Let's say it's my personal laptop. There is my personal phone. So let's say this is my laptop. This is my phone. I ain't gonna tell you yet what is over there, and I ain't gonna tell you what is there, and I ain't gonna tell you what is there for now. But I'm gonna tell you that if I want to send some funds, so the contract is storing all my funds. There are no funds over here, no funds over there, right? So when I'm storing funds over here, and I wanna send to some other wallets, those funds to some other wallets, what I do is I say from my laptop, hey, I would like to send some funds. And I send that information to the smart contract, okay? And what happens is I have another key on my phone, so I cannot do a transaction if I don't confirm with my phone, right? So I have kind of 2-factor authentication thing. Does that make sense now for the people? Okay, so that should be pretty straightforward. Good, so I will revert back for a moment to here. And so meta transactions, we're gonna go back to it, and universal login. Now the idea is that we can use that contract to log in to different services. So if we want to use, let's say, CryptoKitties, now we can say, okay, this is my contract. I go to one of my devices and say, okay, this is CryptoKitties. They want to use your wallet. Are you okay with that? I'm fine with that. And I can start using CryptoKitties or any other application you would like to use. Good. Now I see I definitely have to change the sequence here. slides. So now the question comes. I have my laptop, I have my phone, and I lost my phone. What do I do? I suddenly lost all the funds I have, right? Because I need 2 signatures to do a transaction. So what I can do is I can say, okay, I'm gonna put a third key to another, let's say third, it might be many different things. But in this particular example, we're gonna say, we're gonna put a key to trusted external third party. And now I need 2 out of 3 keys to create a transaction. Well, let's say we trust them, that when we go to them and tell them, hey, this is me, this is my ID, or they can verify who I am in any other way, they will actually do a transaction for me, right? But if they are not fair, if they want to cheat or take away my money, or if someone gets into their server and steal all the keys, they alone cannot do anything with my wallet because we need 2 out of 3. And that's the simplest possibility we can use. We can think about much more complicated roles different keys would have. We can think about, okay, if I want to do a small transaction, then maybe 1 key is enough, and I have a daily limit for a transaction. Or maybe I don't want to trust a trusted third party. Maybe I want to have just 5 different friends that 4 out of 5 needs to confirm that's who I am. If I lost my phone, I can set up a new one, and so on and so forth. Now going back to crypto keys. So imagine I want to start using crypto keys. Now it's pretty complicated. You need to use MetaMask. Who knows what a MetaMask is? Okay, so MetaMask is pretty problematic from a couple of perspectives. One perspective is it has fairly low market adoption. I think it's between 20 and 30% of the market. The other one is MetaMask is a plugin. And plugins are by design insecure. So there's this competition Google is doing every year, and they give prizes for people to break into Chrome. And every single year, I think with one exception, and it's happening now for 10 years or something, with one exception, nobody was able to hack into Chrome. There are like 2 different categories. So nobody was able to hack into Chrome when it was just pure installation of Chrome. But if there was just a single plugin installed, then people were able to hack into it within minutes. So, and that comes just from the architecture of the plugins. Plugins are just, by design, not very secure. Well, it's a trade-off between flexibility and security, and they push it toward flexibility. So now we're talking about storing all the funds. It's something that is by design insecure. So the idea is here, and I'm going to jump again a little bit. Good. The idea here is I go to a service, let's say CryptoKitties, and my wallet has a name, right? So let's say alexethereum.eth. It is an ENS name. ENS is like DNS, but on Ethereum. And all I need to do, I need to go to my app and say, okay, I confirm that CryptoKitties are allowed to use my wallet. And then when I confirm, I go back to the browser, bam, I'm connected, and I can start buying and selling CryptoKitties and confirm it with my phone. Does that make sense so far? Good. Good. So that's the third thing here, universal login. Now going back to meta-transactions make it so that all those different, it's a technical implementation detail really, that every time I'm doing so, the one who is paying for transaction is not that guy, it's not that guy, or not that guy, but every time the identity is paying for the transaction. Good. So what we built? We started building in August this year. We built a prototype SDK, a JavaScript SDK that allows anyone to very quickly create an identity contract, that allows anyone very quickly to set up his own relier. There are smart contracts, and we built a demo application that we're gonna display at the very end. We got quite a lot of traction. We did first round of displaying of displaying. I will show you. Yeah, we do this fall at DEF CON 4 Crypto Live, Berlin Web 3.0. We did a couple of events displaying our idea, showing our demo, and that get us quite a lot of traction. A lot of people are now following us on GitHub and trying to build something on top of that. I think I would not be exaggerating if I would say there is at least half of a dozen of teams trying to build something now on our SDK, and another half of a dozen building something similar or comparing solutions. Something that you could compare to us. I think we are the only one that says universal login, the ability to log in with your contract, is our very unique idea, and that's something that we built. Something that we build and nobody else is, as far as we know. Good. What else? What else? Okay. So we released, just this week, we released NPMs so you can actually go to our website or go to our GitHub and start trying it out yourself. It's fairly easy, even if you don't have a lot of experience with programming, you probably can understand more or less what the code is doing. So in the first line, at the very top, we first install the plugin, install the NPM, then we import it. And what we need to do is we need to initialize the SDK, and we have two parameters. One parameter is the address of relayer. The relayer is external server that provides meta transaction services for us. What is important is we kind of don't have to trust relayer for the whole system to work. So it's an external service, but if we're not happy with it, we just go to another one. And we need to connect to an Ethereum node, which is the second address from the top. Once we do that, we can create a new contract. Contract has a name, and it returns a private key, the private key to be stored on a given device, and contract address of the contract that we just deployed. We don't really need that address because we have ENS name, so we can always resolve ENS name to an address. But let's say it's a nice thing to have. And once we do that, we create a message. And for those of you who don't know, this message is pretty much like any other Ethereum message. It has from address, it has to address. Now, interesting is from address is now the address of the contract that we created, because we're now sending transactions from the contract. We're not sending transactions from our private emails. So we have to data, value, gas price, gas limit, and a new field gas token, because now we can pay for transaction not only in Ether, but we can pay for transaction with tokens that we might have, as long as the relayer is supporting that. And then we say execute transaction and the private key we want to sign it with. Good. Do you have any questions so far? Good. Good. So what do we want to do? I can tell you a little bit more about the technical challenges, or we can do a demo. Which one would you prefer? Technicals? Okay. So it seems like a fairly easy problem, like a fairly easy idea, but then when you go into details, there are a lot of little noisy details. One is a refund problem. So refund is, how do we make it so that relayer, so the guy who takes transaction and execute it, how do we make sure he gets his money back? And it's a surprisingly difficult problem, because what happens is relayer is creating a transaction using the signatures from all the different keys, and then it's executing transaction. And when the execution of the transaction is done, he can calculate how much it would cost, and the smart contract is giving money back to the relayer. It turns out it's super difficult to calculate how much the transaction cost. And the reason is the pricing of Ethereum is pretty complicated. And for example, even when you create a transaction, each byte of transaction is priced differently. If it's a 0, I think it's 8 gas, 6 gas, 4 gas, okay? And if it's non-zero, I think it's 68, right? So it's So even calculating the data, the size of the data, the cost of the transaction is too expensive to be done on chain. So you have to calculate it off chain and push it to the contracts. The other thing, it's very hard to make sure the transaction is always going to be executed, because the contract is running on the Ethereum network, and at any point of time, someone can change the state of the contract. So when the transaction hits, it might fail. So it's a fairly difficult problem how to make it so the refund is always happening, and there is no way to force Relayer to execute transaction that fails, and because they fail, they never get a refund, because the refund is a part of transaction. Another nicer topic is modules. So we've done quite some research last month, and we believe it's possible, and we're going to implement it pretty soon. It's possible to do modules. Modules that allows you to extend the features of the contract. So for example, one thing is you have a contract and you can make transactions, but wouldn't it be cool if you can do a subscription payment? So you have a so you have a contract, and you want to pay, like, say, 1 Ether every month for some kind of subscription. Or would it be interesting, for example, to be able to send a link with a gift that can be used to create a contract, wallet contract from someone else. So I'm sending you 1 DAI, and you can claim it on your wallet, or if you don't have a wallet, the one is going to be created for you. So all those different use cases we were able to discuss with people who are building things on top of SDK, and we want to build a flexible module system that allows to extend functionality. Another interesting problem is counterfactual deployment. So who pays for deployment of the contract? So if we have a contract and it pays for the transactions, then who pays for deployment if there's no contract yet, right? And so the idea is you can create an address for a contract, and once the money is there, there's going to be a contract deployed to this particular address, and the contract, first thing it's going to do after deployment, it's going to refund itself, so pay for the deployment. And again, it sounds easy, but it's a little bit tricky. For example, because we have ENS names, and someone could already register ENS names in between the time someone had an intention to create a contract and actual contract deployment. And proxy is another interesting things we want to do. So contracts are pretty expensive to deploy. So if we could, instead of deploying the whole contract, deploy just a small contract that represents the address, and the whole implementation of the contracts would be in the libraries. So those are interesting technical challenges that, well, some of them we already tackled, and some of them we still working on. Good. I told you we've been on a couple of events this fall. Yeah, on top of that, so what we're building is essentially SDK for developers. So it's not a product, it's not something we want to sell to people, it's something we want to make people excited about and use in their products. And therefore, we would like to, rather than build something for ourselves, create a bunch of standards. So if you want to use meta transactions, this is how it goes. If you want to do modules, this is how it goes. If you want to do universal login, but with your own wallet, with your own implementation of contracts, this is how it goes. And there is a bunch of people who are working with, and here's, for example, a standardization workshop during DevCon 4 that has, I don't know, like 40 or 50 people attending, discussing how to build those. Yeah. Dimo? Yes, please. Good. How do we do that? Okay, so this is a video. Video was recorded, and I have a witness, Kuba, there. He will confirm. The video was recorded 10 minutes before this presentation, straight from the master branch. So it's fresh from the oven. Good. So what's happening here? We have two applications. We have a split screen. Let's say this is a phone. Let's say this is a web browser. And this is just an example application using universal login. I have never used universal login before. Well, the scenario is the person never used the universal login before. So let's go. So what happens, I go to the web, and Justina was recording the demo. So she just created her own identity, her own wallet, and logging into application. Application is very simple. It has a click button. The demo is going so fast, I'm not able to. Okay, let's rewind and from the beginning. It's already half of the demo, right? So here we're gonna log in, register. We're gonna log into our application for the very first time. So that would be, come on, I thought I put it on pause. Okay, now it's on pause. Good. One more time. 3 times a piece. Good. So, for the very first time, we're gonna go into this application and create a contract that is going to be, by the way, kind of a login for your application. Application is going to be very simple. It's gonna have just one button, and when we click it, it's gonna show in the history that we click it. And that represents a mobile phone, and we're gonna connect from the mobile phone, right? So here we go. I go there, I type Justina, I pick my ENS domain, and bam, it's done, already done. I created a contract, everything is fine. Would be a little bit slower on mainnet. And then I connect from the mobile, bam, notification shows up, click, I accept request, and now I'm connected on both devices. And here we go. And when I click on one, that click is being registered on the blockchain. Boom. Boom. 2 applications, 2 keys, 1 blockchain. Good. Do you have any questions?
So you said that you're sending something from your mobile to the contract.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as I understand, when you're triggering contract, you have to pay something, right? So how is it that you said you're not paying from your mobile?
There are two different important moments, right? The deployment of the contract, and that one is a little bit more tricky. So I'll start with more standard way of doing things. So imagine the contract is already deployed, and what I do is I have a key on this mobile, and you can see there is no arrow here, right? It just means that this particular device is connected by the key, meaning that, well, the contract stores the public key of that is stored on this device as well. We have public and private key here, and just public key here, right? Does that make sense so far? Okay. Now, instead of sending the transaction to the blockchain, what I do is I send transaction with the private key. And the transaction goes through the relayer, right? The flow here is shown for the web app. So web app has a key. We authorize adding a key. Key of the web app is not as strong, doesn't have the same permission level as key on my laptop or on my mobile device. And I sign a message. So I state my intention. I want to send transaction to that address, that amount, this data, and so on and so forth. And I send it to relayer. It might be a couple of those that I need because I need to confirm with my mobile phone, right? So I have one signature from web app, one signature from mobile, and it all goes to relayer. Relayers repackage the message into a transaction.
So it matches those signatures, right?
Yes. So the relayer is adding ether to the message, kind of changing the message into transaction, right? Otherwise, just shuffling bits around. And then it sends to a contract. And what contract does, it checks the signatures. So it makes sure that one key is coming from the web app, another one is coming from the mobile. Those are correct keys, and they have a proper permissions and so on and so forth. And it does the execution, and when the execution finishes, he does the refund. So the contract is sending money back to relayer for the cost of execution of the transaction.
So who generates the keys and who distributes them across across the devices?
The key is generated on the device at the moment you create or connect, right? So if you, for example, look here, right? So this is a code you execute, let's say for the first time you want to create a wallet, right? So you get a private key that you store on the device. And you don't back up that key, you don't move it around, just keep it on your device. And then when you want to connect, you generate a key, you store it on the device, don't back up it, don't move it around, and then just connect it through the relayer. Relayer just sends a message, hey, is this guy okay? So, this guy okay, this is my mobile. That makes sense? My feeling is there's at least one more question you have in your head before it all makes sense.
I just wanted to ask you, if all the transactions are going through the relayer, how decentralized the relayer is? If it's a third party, I want to understand, because from my point, I could easily hack the third party and then grant myself access to all the keys and therefore, you know, stealing all the funds or whatever.
That's an excellent question. So in ideal case, it's a little bit tricky at some points, but it's going to be a little bit of a simplification. But in general, we can say the relayer is fully permissionless, meaning that I relay through the relayer, and either relayer relays the message or there is nothing else he can do. The only thing he can do is he can withhold and not relay the message, right? And the reason is the transaction is signed with the keys. So the transaction is what I created it to be and can be only executed in this, not other form, right? So every single time relayer makes a decision. I wanna relay this message or not. Now relayer can be cheated by the contract because the contract can say, okay, I don't want a refund. So given relayer probably only trust some types of contracts. And that's when it kind of gets complicated, because I mentioned before that you know, it's easy to trick relayer into relaying a message that ain't gonna be successful. So what we could do is we could say, okay, so this particular identity can execute messages from this particular relayer. If we do so, if we guarantee that on the smart contract level, the relayer can dry run the transaction on the server, see if it's going to be successful, and only then relay it to the network. And then he has a guarantee it's going to be successful, right? But then it's not very distributed, is it? So the idea is, and we're not pursuing this idea, some other people are pursuing this. So different startups have different approaches to it. So some people say, okay, we have to have some level of trust between the contract and relayer, and sometimes relayer gonna get cheated, and he's just gonna blacklist that one or something, right? So some people say what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a distributed network of relayers, and they're gonna need to follow some kind of rules, and there are some pretty good ideas what the rules would be, and there's only one relayer going round robin or whatever else strategy that is allowed to relay particular transaction. And if he doesn't relay it within some time, then there is another one and another one and another one, right? So, so in that particular solution, we could have a fully permissionless environment where relayer don't need to trust the contract, well, don't need to trust the person relaying, they just need to trust the contract, which they can read bytecode of and only work if the bytecode is the one that they support. And the person that is relaying don't need to you know, and vice versa, right? Because there is no way relayer can cheat, right? But even though we're talking about madman attacks, right? I'm trying to force to DDoS relayer for no good reason, right? Those kind of attacks. No, not stealing your money kind of attacks.
So as you could notice, there's a lot of questions about like relayers, and this seems to be a problem on its own, like huge problem on its own. And don't you think that it deserves like a split from universal login problem itself into more like, because it's, I think, connected to execution markets, right? This relayer problem, and yeah, maybe just, you know, deserves even more focus and making it more generic solution, like.
Exactly. So what we're trying to focus, so like there is at least two other startups building personal multi-sig wallets now. There's at least 20 different startups doing now something with meta that I am aware of, doing something about meta transaction, and there is one doing something about universal logins. So our focus is universal login, and we're working with the other startups doing the other two things to get it standardized so that, you know, in ideal world, if I create ideally, I create a wallet with one, I create this contract with one contract wallet, with one identity wallet, and I can use it to log into all the different services, and then I can use different relayers from all the different wallets and all the different services to relay transactions. That would be perfect scenario. We are not absolutely sure it's possible, depending on, you know, how the standardization process will go, mostly, but that would be ideal. That would be our goal. Are there any other questions? No questions? 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 Good. We have a pizza
Okay.
chance?
Sorry?
Have a pizza coming, Martin? Chance?
Yes. So, surprise, surprise.
Ah, we have a surprise guest.
Yeah, we have a surprise guest. So pizza is
So-
coming.
so-
Don't worry. Beer is still here. But before that, I would like to, thank you, Marek, by the way.
Thank you.
So before we go to pizza, I would like to invite to the stage Anya, who will show us a little bit about her project.
Hello. Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm here thanks to courtesy of AtWorks guys. I'm here just to tell you a little bit about my project. With my film crew, Refugium, we are making a documentary about social impact of blockchain. We wanted to explain blockchain in the easiest way possible because we realized that there are some people, or there's some lack of information about blockchain itself, and sometimes people don't know somebody who can explain it in a very easy way. So we decided to do it in the easiest way possible, so through people stories, people cases, people sometimes hopes, fears, dramas. We started our production in March this year. We started from Puerto Rico, devastated from Hurricane Maria, and very centralized place. Then we went to US, then came back to Europe. We took a part of blockchain-based referendum in Switzerland. And recently we have came back from Bangladesh, where we were observing one project's work about connectivity on blockchain-based solutions, of course. And all of this, it's, let's say, put already in our trailer, recently released. We want to go to our plan. Our dream is to go to Venezuela to deepen the problem of democracy there, and to do it, to finish it. Of course, we were still looking for some funds. You can learn more about our project, about the movie, about us on our landing page, decentdocumentary.com. You can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. And of course, you can support us by clicking donate button on our page. You can support us in normal currency, in cryptocurrencies. And I just wanted to encourage you to visit our page, to be in touch with us. If you have any questions, any remarks, any suggestions, we are really open to talk to you, so we can meet later on and talk about it. And now I will show you our trailer. It takes only 2.5 minutes, so it's not too much. And then pizza is coming, I can see, so okay, enjoy.
This was all underwater. Everything. In January or February, I started, investigating blockchain. And it sounds so cool that people say, no, this is too good to be true,
That's how all technology starts. That's people that just love computers and love code and love the beauty of mechanics. What's most interesting is how can we use these mechanics to actually create a difference in the real world.
Blockchain lives on everybody's computer. And everybody has the responsibility of maintaining it.
It's all about creating human connections, creating more connections, more trusted connections between individuals.
You can control all the aspects of your life, whether it's money,
like the bank that's always getting robbed,
data, human relationships, even controlling who you vote for without the intervention of governments, big companies.
We want people to have that control back again.
It's possible. It will take some time, but it's possible.
This is the algorithm. Blockchain is a piece of art.